Hey, yo, what's poppin', everybody? It's the No Level Cap Podcast. We back once again with the crew. I want y'all to give me a minute to introduce my incredible co-hosts. We got the Black Daredevil and the secret weapon of No Level Cap, Terrence Flowers. What's poppin', Terrence?
Hey man, everything is all good. I can't complain too much. Been working more so on like the acting side of things, really trying to get auditions going and submitting for stuff. Actually have one tomorrow that I need to work on. So yeah, doing little acting tings. That's been the theme of this week. But overall, I'm doing well. Can't complain.
Hey, that's what I wanted to hear. Next up, we got the living cartoon and the man with the golden voice, Rakeem Beck. What's going on, Rakeem?
Yeah, well, I spent the morning. Speaking of acting, spent the morning dressed up and makeup upped as a zombie for a small little film for like a little film festival. That was pretty fun. Afterwards, though, I felt like gutter trash. I've been sick all day. It's been, like fever, chills, all types of stuff. I feel a little better now, thank God. So I was ready to do the podcast. I've been in bed all day, but we're gonna talk about this Quantumania today.
I appreciate your devotion to the work, man. You didn't have to show up. Like we actually set up. We had done like prep before Rakeem showed up, and because we just seemed like he was knocked out, so it was just like, all right, well, we'll go ahead and start without him. And then he just popped in and was like, nah, guys, I'm ready. So I mean, like, this man is devoted to the work. I appreciate you, bro.
No
Uh,
problem.
Lastly, we've got One Punch Man, the master of combos, Mr. Devin Butts. How you doing, Devin?
Pretty good, man. Unfortunately, like my brother Rakeem just said, some little, amoeba of sickness has been running around. So I'm not 100%. My voice is my throat is a little scratchy right now. Yesterday I felt like gutter trash. But today I'm a lot better. Just my voice now. Just got all work, watched the movie, made time to watch the movie. Actually, really interested to talk about this movie. But yeah, just been at work. They're trying to have me at work 9 days a week, 34 hours a day. So, but at least I have some money. So I guess that's one positive with it. But yeah, watch this movie, Quantumania, and let's get into it, man.
Lastly, I am Sage Ashford, the man who won't shut up. We do have a little bit of time for once, so I will say, I was not really feeling up to it. Yeah, just had on stuck with a headache all day. I don't know what the fuck going on around this house, but maybe we gotta talk to some people in the quantum realm, see if they can help us out with some quick medicine or something. I don't know, but if you didn't know, No Level Cap goes live every Monday morning. We appear on YouTube for video fans. If you prefer the audio version, we're live on Spotify as well. We're also on TikTok. Give us a follow before the government bans the clock out for good. All right, so let's get into it. We saw, Antman and the Wasp: Quantumania, the latest film, and what I had forgotten was the first Phase 5 film. Like, this is the start of Phase 5, and before we got a chance to watch it, because of course, certain people, they get to go to the the red carpet premieres, and the extra, I'm special, I'm an insider, like everybody. Reviewers got a chance to talk about it, and man, the reviews came back looking awful. And I am actually very curious to see what y'all thought about it, because I had no idea what to think going into it, and I was actually kind of excited. I'm like, is this gonna be a bad movie? Like, let's see. So I just want to know, Terrence, what was your thoughts on the film?
So I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. I don't think that Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania is a bad film. It's not belongs in the trash or anything. It's not worse than, in my opinion, Thor: Love and Thunder. I think Love and Thunder has a lot more problems than this film has. That being said, I personally just think it's okay. Like, it's not horrible. It's not great. It's just okay. And the main reason why is it feels like the type of film that it just kind of moves the MCU plot along. Like, it moves the overarching plot along and doesn't really serve as a good film on its own. And you could argue that point about all the MCU films, but let me paint a better picture. Like something like Captain America: Winter Soldier. Yes, that moves along the MCU, and it entangles, like, it explores like Hydra and how they infiltrated the government and all that good stuff. but it functions as a good movie just on its own. Like, you can watch Captain America Winter Soldier and you can be thoroughly entertained by it. It's a good movie outside of just being a good MCU film. Something like Thor Ragnarok, that is a good film. It, of course, furthers along the MCU, but it also is a good standalone film that you can just watch, have a good time. Same with like Shang-Chi, and there are many others, but I'm not, I digress. But this just feels like it's just there to introduce Kang as the ultimate threat for this phase and kind of move along from there. And that's not all a bad thing, but it just makes the movie kind of forgettable in the sense of, it's like, once you've seen it, it's like, I don't really need to watch it again. That's my take on it. There are some other things that I have to say, and I'll just be really quick about it. For me, like, sometimes the CG was just a little bit too much, because most of this movie is CG. Like, the aliens, the backgrounds, a lot of the characters, one of them is specifically, I know we'll get into later on. But yeah, there's just a lot of CG going on in the film, and for the most part, it works. But then there's some areas where it definitely feels like, yeah, I'm watching a movie that's been shot on a green screen, And shout outs to the CGI artists. They're really putting in work for these MCU films. They're trying their damnedest, but sometimes, to my understanding, when it comes to CGI work, it just takes a lot of time. And if you're not given time to work on this stuff, then you're not going to get the most optimal results. The Ant family, I will say the Ant family, I think that they really work well together. I like their dynamic. There were some issues, some character issues with specifically like Janet, and not so much, I wouldn't say like issues per se with Cassie, but like with Janet, the fact that she kind of like kept keeping secrets just kept being a problem in the film. It's like, yo, just tell us what's going on. We'll tell your family what's going on. That way they can better help. It didn't help her just keeping things to herself. And then later on it comes out anyway, and it's like, well, now we have to face this regardless. And Cassie, I will say that I appreciate that she wants to help people that have been displaced by the blimp. I actually think that's a very interesting plot point, and something that I know a movie can't really tackle just because, they have superhero stuff to do. But I would like to see something like that tackled more in a TV show. Probably have to be one of the more street level superhero TV shows.
And then the Winter Soldier did some of that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then but it didn't get a chance to focus on it as much as I know you talking about.
Mhm.
But it was the one that like came the closest to talking about like, okay, this is what life has been like since the blip. And like, I was kind of like, okay. And this is the first time anybody that I can think of has really talked about it since.
Yeah. And I do like that angle of her character, that she really wants to help. Although I will say, the irony of her, just kind of like being able to just walk in and out of jail multiple times is not lost on me. I'll put it that way. Most people can't just go to jail and just get bailed out by their, superhero family. But, it is what it is. Her heart is at least in the right place. One thing that they kept doing that I also hated that they did in Spider-Man is No Way Home, right? That's the third one, right?
Far From Home, I think.
It's
No Way. It's No Way Home. It's No Way
I
Home.
always get the second and the third one like swap, like
Same.
yeah,
Names too similar.
yeah. The third one, they did this in the third one too. They kept putting on their mask, pulling them off, putting them on, pulling them back off. It's like, I know why they do that. Like from an actor contract angle, they probably have it written where they have to show their face. I think there was somebody specific in like another movie that kind of started all that off, and that's the reason why they do so much of the have to show their face thing. But man, it got so distracting at times because they would just keep just doing this.
It's one of those things where like, why they do it,
yeah,
but as a viewer of the film, it does not make the film better. In fact, in some cases, it can be distracting or make the film actively worse. So
yeah, even MODOK had that where he'd put the thing on and take it off. It's like, yo, you've shown your face, man. Just leave your face up. I mean, even given how ugly it is, like, just leave your face up if you're gonna do it. But yeah, that's just one of those things that just irked me. But one positive that I will give it is that Jonathan Majors did a great job as Kang. Like I really liked him as Kang. I thought that he delivered given the role. And it really does a good job of like setting him up as the threat for future movies. And I mean, we'll talk about him later, but yeah, I really liked him in the role of Kang. But overall, those are my thoughts. It's like, it's an okay movie. It's not a bad movie. Anyone who says that it's just gutter trash and you just need to be thrown away, I mean, I don't know about all that. I mean, to each their own, but I think that, this is just the type of movie where you watch it and it's like, yeah, I'm good, which is kind of like how Thor Love and Thunder was. But once again, I don't think it's as bad as Love and Thunder, but it's along those lines.
What would you give it?
I give it a 6. I don't
Okay,
think it's a good start to Phase 5. I'll put it that way. Like, I really hope that Guardians 3 is much better, because if both movies this year are just okay, that's not a good sign for this phase. So, yeah, just a 6 is what I'd give it.
Okay. So this is actually interesting because we had such a off-kilter day. So, Rakeem, why don't you tell us about Quantumania, brought to us by Slotlights?
Can't wait to hear this.
Depending on where you watch your Quantumania, man, you might have had some extra slotty positions and some extra advertisements,
Some extra commercials.
Yeah, man, it's crazy because they integrated so well. For a second, like, is this part of the movie? What are we going?
Nah, because the quality got too much better.
I thought I was
Why
the
did
one
it get better?
Oh, is this like those 2000s LimeWire downloads where they have like you're listening to DJ Khaled on the
Kind of like that. It's really more like we was watching it on not HBO, like TNT, and in the middle of it, it's just like cut away, and you get like an actual commercial, and you like, I know what the fuck happened here.
Gotcha.
Indeed. But yeah, well, watching this movie, I actually liked the opening. Him retelling the story of like his past and like becoming an author of a book, and the juxtaposition of him and his daughter having different mindsets about how to navigate life after the blip as a hero. Clearly, he's got to the point because of all the stuff that's happened with his family and nearly losing people and the death-defying situations. He just ready to settle down and enjoy his family, and I can't really blame him. But when you have someone in your family, like a daughter or a child, when you were a hero and you raise a child, they're gonna learn some heroism. And I think the dynamic of him and his daughter butting heads was a little bit endearing. I will say I kind of agree with Terrence though. It got a little old, where everybody was like trying to explain stuff to each other, but they would be like, "We're gonna talk about that later. Don't worry about it right now. We're gonna talk about it later. Let's get back to this." And it definitely got wild with the grandmother, because she was it. It got to the point where they were down there and it looked like she was in Hokutonoken fighting some bandits or something, and she wasn't explaining nothing. Like, her family was just mystified, and she just like couldn't give them any explanation. So that got a little aggravating. I did like the aspect of the show where I felt like it almost was like Lost in Space, or like Star Wars was more of a grand adventure in a place that people aren't familiar with. I think, like you said, Jonathan Majors did a great job as a villain. I honestly wish he had got a little bit more screen time, to be honest. Towards in the middle, but they did a good job revealing to him. I will say, like you were talking about the mask on and off. Man, I think with Jonathan Majors with the blue screen face, he just kept taking off. Like, bro, either be the villain or be a regular black guy. You gotta pick one. Come on, bro. Super Sentai Kang over here, man. He got to show his helmet. He got, he the Sixth Ranger, so he got to show his face every once in a while. But yeah, I think this movie kind of can suffer from the problem of like the parts of where the family is like having these issues kind of waters down certain parts of the film. I thought it was actually interesting they were dealing with these species, these creatures, and learning about them, and like the history with Janet and like those people and being a freedom fighter. That was interesting, but I felt like the melodrama in the family and them kind of arguing over how to handle things kind of slowed the film down, the pacing down a little bit. I could have done without that. And I will say some of the action was kind of cool. Like you said, there was a lot of CG in this movie, which, I mean, it's Ant-Man, so what else was gonna happen? MODOK, I don't know how to feel about MODOK. Even when I was a kid, I never liked MODOK. So like seeing him like does nothing for me. I thought he did like a they kind of went with like a cliche death angle where the character gets redeemed, and they played off of that. That was a little bit funny. I think the comedy in this movie was sometimes a little off too, and it never felt like it was just right. It felt a little on the corny side too, a little bit. So yeah, but
It's
overall,
never too late to not be a dick.
Yeah, there's always room for the little guy. But yeah, overall, I think I say about a 7. I thought it was okay. I was not super excited about it. I think I did like some ramifications of like Kang and his character arc and like the things he talked about, where the different copies of himself will come. That was interesting. And like it kind of left this foreboding feeling at the end of the movie. That was cool. But other than that, I gotta give it like an average 7. I can't put this above, like you said, Shang-Chi. Can't do it. I can't even put this above Doctor Strange. I just thought it was all right.
Which Doctor Strange? The recent one?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
All right, Devin. Tell us about what you thought of Ant-Man and the Wasp, brought to you by Slotlights.
So like first thing first, King just mentioned it. This movie, which I would actually give it points for, it did remind me a lot of Star Wars, other than a Marvel movie. And it also really seemed closer to like Guardians of the Galaxy, like just the vibe, like this phantasmal world, just out in the, the quantum realm. So different from, and I mean, they kind of got to business immediately. Like they went there immediately. So, that was cool to me. Again, Jonathan Majors, I think he did a really good job as Kang, played the part. My first introduction to Kang was Avengers: Earth's Mightiest Heroes, and I thought he was a cool character there. That's like one of my favorite cartoons. I think it was much better than the Avengers Assemble. That was a freaking great cartoon. Like
100% facts. Yeah.
If y'all hadn't seen that, please, like I might watch that again. That was a great cartoon. He was in that show. Yeah, Rakeem mentioned it too. The comedy was a little they were force feeding to you. Like, you gonna get this comedy. Like when MODOK showed up, there's all these jokes. I'm like, all right, can we just like get on? Like, and I get it. It's Marvel. They want the lighthearted. They got the action, so they want to have some lightheartedness and some funniness to, to kind of, I guess, appeal to like a crowd that's, a diverse crowd, right? But they were just doing too much. I must say, MODOK was the worst part of the movie for me, like hands down. Like just the CG, just how goofy and forced it was. And again, like Kings, I've never really liked MODOK. I thought he's always just a goofy looking character, but I think this might be the worst MODOK has ever been done. Like, they got to put some more respect in their name. Like they almost made me not even want to see the character again. I'm like, all right, bro, I'm MODOK'd out, bro. Like, I am mainly offended that others care for this character. That's what MODOK stand for me. Yeah, I didn't like MODOK. I think the movie was, like I said, the action was pretty cool. Again, like I said, it just reminded me of Star Wars. All those like jumbo cactar looking shaped ships that the people, those weird looking ships, when they got there, they got the creatures like, drink the fluid, I'm gonna drink the ooze. I'm like, hold on, wait, I just got here. But it was like, excuse me, I think I've seen that in another movie where you had to like drink something.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too. I was like, yeah, that's something that's appeared in a movie too, where you drink something
I've seen that before
to get like the ability to understand everybody. Man, it's like on the tip of my brain, but I can't think.
That's from something else too. I can't think of what it, but I know I've seen it somewhere.
It's gonna bug me. I gotta look this up.
And I don't know if y'all noticed, but I kind of felt that when Scott, when he went big to catch his daughter, did y'all feel like that was kind of a slight remake of Men in Hikaru, as she was like falling, he turned big like and caught her.
Macross.
Yeah, I was like, no, they couldn't have put that. They couldn't have been that clever. But I just thought it kind of was reminiscent of that moment.
that
Like he
kind of
turned,
scene is kind of popular just in general.
yeah,
But, I mean, I wouldn't say that it came from Macross, although I wouldn't be surprised because that was an iconic film at one point.
yeah. Um, I enjoyed the film overall. I do think later on in the film, uh, okay, I do want to say when Kang sent Scott to go recover the core, and he had like all those infinite possibilities and stuff that was popping up. Did y'all notice that they actually did some real science to like the forms he was making to go up and get the core? There's like ants actually do that, which is kind of cool. Like ants just make like these little forms. I'm like, okay, they kind of sticking true to the actual ants. I will say though, Kane the Conqueror, he also reminded me kind of Thanos. He was very like philosophical, and Janet was talking to him like, "You've lost." He's like, "I have lost. Do you know what I've lost? I will make them burn away from time." I'm like, "Oh, bro, like I'm scared. Like you ain't even a real character." Then he said something. She was like, "You gonna kill like trillions of people?" He's like, "And I wish that mattered." I'm like,
man, I'm gonna get into that. I'm gonna get into that with the when we talk about Kang specifically.
So he kind of had that similar style to like Thanos was kind of like just really philosophical, like I'm going to snap my finger, the threads of time, all that kind of talk. So I think they did a good job with that. I mean, that's how that character would be. Even when she had first met him, it was almost as if it almost seemed to me as if he had lost his memory or something. Kind of like in a way, because he was like he just seemed like he's so lost, but he was just really kind of just playing it. Then she
Good
like touched,
liar.
yeah, she just touched his ship, and she was like, who are you?" And he was like, he's like, "What did you see?" He's like, "Who was that? Who was Kane?" Or something. He's like, "Who I'm meant to be." I'm like, this man just, bro, go get a McDouble or something and chill out, bro. Go get a McFlurry or something, man.
A
She got hit
low-down
with
dirty
the light Yagami when he touched the Death Note and all the memories came.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I think they did a good job with him. I will say at the end though, he just seemed so all powerful. But then he got ran down by some Chimera ants. Like, come on, bro. Chimera ants came out there from the Dark Continent. You couldn't take out some ants, bro.
Oh, like
Come
from
on.
Hunter x Hunter?
Yeah, man, the Chimera ants came out there. I'm like, come on, bro. You talking about, man, I got my technology is centuries beyond what even you can even imagine. You got took out by some Chimera. I mean, not technically, but
I
you
mean,
shouldn't even.
the ants had like apparently hundreds of years to evolve and all that shit, and they built,
Yeah.
hella advanced technology themselves. So
I mean, I guess, but you can't be out here conquering universes and killing people off in time. And you like some ants going. They almost got you, man. They took one of your sleeves off, man. They almost got you, bro. But all in all, I think it was like y'all said, I don't think it was just a throw this movie in the trash. I will echo that I don't think this was a super like duper start for Phase 5. Although I do think that like just Kang in general is a really good like this is the next bad enemy. Like I think that's great. But hopefully the next movie is like it kind of ups the ante a little bit. I give it a 6.5.
all right, so when I saw how bad the reviews were, I was actually kind of excited. Because I mean, like we've never done a bad movie on this podcast before, and to be honest with you, we are about 4,000 or 5,000 subscribers away. Actually, 10,000 subscribers away, probably, and probably about average 4,000 or 5,000 views episode before I get anywhere near want to do a bad movie review like on purpose. Because if we gonna do something, we might as well do shit we enjoy. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to just be doing like, oh, next week we're gonna check out this other piece of trash. Like, I don't want to do that on purpose. But if we stumbled into a garbage movie and we get the chance to rip it to shreds, I was like, okay, that'd be kind of fun. So I was kind of like excited. I'm like, oh man, is this movie trash? Because like I'm gonna be honest with y'all, I'm kind of detached from the Marvel universe. I still enjoy comic books quite a bit. I'm reading like old comic books right now, and that's the thing. Like I'm so attached to the comics that I look at this stuff and I'm just kind of like, it's fine. It don't even come close really to the comics anymore. A lot of times they drift so far away from what you would know the characters to be in the comics, and I'm just like, whatever. So I went into this thinking, oh man, I'm sure this movie gonna be trash. I seen the reviews, and then like I saw it, and I'm like, no, this is solid. It's fine. Like I have seen worse from the Marvel universe. I like this more than I like Black Widow. I like this way more than I like Guardians of the Galaxy, both of them. I like this way more than I like Multiverse of Madness. I really didn't care too much for Multiverse of Madness. If I'm like on reflection, I liked it less the more I thought about it. Like like to see some of the characters that you've been wanting to see for years, and the first thing you see of Reed Richards or Professor X is them getting shredded by Scarlet Witch. I'm like, this shit kind of garbage, really, when you think about it. So like I got to this film and I was like, no, this is good. And then, like the first half of it, I was like liking a lot because it felt like I liked how weird and science fiction-y it was. It was like a lot of really cool soft sci-fi, well, not soft, but like fantastical sci-fi to where it felt like an episode of Farscape or some shit. Like all the aliens and how strange the world was. The CG, I mean, like, Farscape was more, if you've ever seen that show, it was more like, puppetry and like practical effects, which I think this film probably could have benefited from a little more of instead of it just being all CG. But I still liked what they did with it. And then like you get to the second half of the film, and I won't say that it fell apart. It's just not as good. Because there's so much shit going on in the film. You got this revolution, and you got Janet's past, and Kang and the incursions, which is really just setting up for like the Avengers film in 2025 or whatever. And there's so much shit going on, and it's like, fuck, you doing too much at one time. And then the other problem I had is the comedy. I don't mind quips. Like superheroes are supposed to quip, all of them. Like just about all the superheroes got some kind of funny joke, some kind of bullshit they talk. The problem is the villain shouldn't be in on the jokes. You got to let the villain be a villain. And they had MODOK out here cracking jokes and trying to be funny and like, it's me. You don't remember me? Man, fuck nah. Get that shit out of here. Like, no, we don't remember. Like, he should be mad and just like constantly attacking. Like, he should be frustrated with the jokes. He should be like insulted by that you telling these jokes, like, don't make a joke out of my existence. This your fault. He should be mad. Like when Scott looked at him and was like, Darren, and he shot him with the laser. It was like, I'm not Darren. You killed Darren. That's how it was supposed to be. When you started bringing him in on the joke, I'm like, all right, you didn't fucked it up. And the sad thing is, I liked MODOK a lot at first. Like when I first seen him, couldn't believe. And then they still kind of fucked that up because like at one point they had to show his little MODOK cheeks. I'm like, who the fuck asked for that? Didn't nobody ask for that? Like they had to show his ass. So like,
hey, you got Thor's ass. You got to get MODOK ass.
He asked for Thor's ass. I don't want none of that. Get the cheeks off the screen, buddy. Like you said, what? Key?
Mo Dunk.
Yeah, he was caked up for some reason. I'm like, well, I didn't even see this man's cakes. Like, get out of here. But I liked the way he looked. I was kind of surprised. I was like, holy shit, y'all kind of brought this man to life pretty well. It made sense, like the fact that he had this oversized face because like the body got destroyed, and they just kind of had to use like little mechanical shit to put him together. And then like the fact he had all these fucking weapons on him and shit, I was like, oh, okay. It's dumb. The character's dumb, but it's dumb in a comic book way, and they kind of brought him into the universe in like a dumb comic book way. So I was like, all right, I fuck with that. My big problem, and we'll get into this a little more when we talk about Kang, but like, I didn't like the fact that they just had to beat Kang, like that they had to, find a way to beat him. I'm like, no, they like. Maybe if you had hyped up the Pym particles more and said something like, oh, yeah, the Pym particles give them the power to kind of counteract all the Kang's, time jump shit. I'd be like, okay, now you set up a way that you can make me believe that these people can beat Kang. And then, like, of course, you have all these the Kang Council or the Kang Dynasty or whatever waiting in the wings. Cool. But the fact that they was just like, oh, no, we can just shrink and grow real easy. No, bro, like, he should have just watched y'all, or like maybe y'all come up with kind of a way to beat him by the end, but you don't kill him. All you do is like set him back. Like I'm gonna use an example that Keem would recognize, like Ouroboros from Trails. Like they never can really beat Ouroboros. All they can do is like, well, you set our plans back a little bit, but I got a backup of a backup of a backup plan, and then I'm gonna be fine. Like all you really did was minorly annoy me, and I'm finna go off and do some more fuck shit, and ain't nothing you could do about that new fuck shit. If it had been that, I would be like, okay, cool. But the fact that they had to like, I will give them this. Kang beat Ant-Man's ass. At the end, like he was piecing that man. He gave him the 4-piece combo.
He was hitting him with those Creed 3 moves.
I was thank you, Terrence. I was thinking the same thing. I was like, damn, you fight a dude from Creed 3. He ain't fighting Kang right now. He was like bloody and fucked up and shit. I'm like, yeah. Because I mean, like when you look at Kang, like when you look at Jonathan Majors and you look at what's my man's name?
Paul Rudd.
Paul
When
Rudd.
you look at Paul Rudd, like, yeah, this is how this fight would go in real life. So I mean, it make perfect sense. And then like he had superior tech and all the other shit. Like, yeah, you should get pieced up. So like I wasn't mad about that at all, but I just didn't like the fact they just had to beat him. I'm like, you didn't have to beat him. You could have just found another way around it. And I mean, like, I don't know. Like, I feel like if you could have afforded it, this would have been better as like a mini series to like set up Kang properly. They kind of already set up Kang and Loki, but like to set up this version of Kang properly, to set up the revolution and the quantum realm and all the shit that Janet went through. You could have done that better if it had been like a longer series.
You know what? I can agree with that.
And then, as far as the only thing I will say about Janet, I did understand she couldn't explain what was going on because of the trauma that she had and like the survivor's guilt that she was feeling. And I was like, okay, I get that. But I do agree with y'all to a point in that they kind of dragged that part out a little too long. It was like, halfway through the movie, and the movie's very long. Halfway through the movie, she's still not telling them anything. And I'm like, nah, you should have told them something about 20 minutes ago. Anytime you start saying shit like, I don't have time to explain, it's like, all right, look, this is dumb because eventually you're going to have to explain. It's like that classic horrible Destiny line. I don't even have time to explain why I don't have time to explain. Like, shut up and give me the exposition that you're going to have to give me anyway. So like, stop wasting our time. Like, she could have explained that like at the beginning of the film when she didn't want to talk about it, when they were in like the regular realm, that made perfect sense. The second they got to the quantum realm, she should have been like, look, I don't want to talk about this, but we kind of got to get this out in the open because you got to know this dude named Kang. I helped him. I hate myself for it, but like I didn't know that he was a monster. And like once y'all picked me up, I just couldn't bring myself to come back here because he was unstoppable. That would have been fine, but the fact that they dragged it out and like it wasn't until like they was on the ship together after they had been captured basically and had to escape, and then finally she was like, I mean, I guess I'll tell y'all. Like, I'm like, you should have been told everybody. Like, this is a waste of time. But other than that, I did like teenage Cassie Lang. I love that she has processed the trauma of being kidnapped by a supervillain by turning into a superhero. I thought that was really cool. I love the fact, and then I think, Keem, you brought this up, how Scott basically, he didn't want nothing to do with being a superhero no more. He just wanted to like coast off of what he had done. Like, oh, I didn't save the world and, it's all good now. Like, oh, I didn't save the world and everybody should just, give me stuff for it and we moving on. And it's like, no, the world still needs saving. Like every day somebody needs some help. Just because you save the world one time doesn't mean that there's not new bullshit going on. And Cassie's ready to fight that war. And Scott very much wasn't. And even at the end, Scott very much isn't, because he's like still going back to his day-to-day life. And there's that moment where he's like, did I kill everybody by killing that dude? Did I ruin everything? Like, and the fact he tried to play it off, but you could tell like, oh no, that stuck with you. And I like that. I do like that a lot. The one thing I'll say comic book wise is I'm kind of bummed out we didn't wind up with Janet, like Janet from the comics. Like this Janet is not the Janet from the comics. And I'm like, all right, man, she cool. She's like freedom fighter. And that element of her is pretty accurate to her. But like the fact that she's not fun loving is kind of a drain. Like the fact that like the Janet from the comics is just like the Janet from like Avengers, Earth Mightiest Heroes. Like she's like kind of really fun loving. She's really into the adventure. She's kind of like Cassie a little bit, but with way more experience. And then instead we just got this one that's just like fucking ruined by like decades of trauma that we never even like, we didn't even get a chance to see her story. It's just like explained in like some exposition. So like that part was bad. But other than that, a decent movie, somewhere in the middle of the pack. I'm gonna say a 7 out of 10. Would I watch it again? Maybe when I try to go ahead and finish up this MCU marathon, but I wouldn't make a habit of just being like, oh yeah, I gotta watch this film. So I guess the next thing I gotta ask is, and y'all all kind of touched on a little bit, but I do want to see, what did y'all think about Kang the Conqueror, like in general? Like, is that a good enough villain for like the Avengers going forward? Rakeem, what do you think?
I think he's a good enough villain. It seems like the gimmick to him is going to be like there's going to be multiple iterations of him. So I'm interested in seeing if they use Kang and then like each Kang does something differently. That could be kind of cool idea behind it. I mean, he definitely felt like an in-boss villain in this freaking movie. Like he had a whole army. He had these freaking soldiers. He had the ships. All he needed was to get out, and it was over with. So, and he'd already freaking annihilated universes and planets and stuff before in timelines. So, to me, he feels like an in-boss villain. I just think that we'll have to see what the other interpretations of him are. I don't know if it's gonna be exactly 1-to-1 and there's gonna be like slight differences, but you could really have fun with having different versions of Kang and they all specialize in different things. Like they have different weapons or different mindsets, or they work together and like they strategize against each other. You can have fun with that. So I think he's a good enough villain. I think Jonathan Majors did a great job. I'm interested to see how this is going to play into the larger MCU and how he's going to be able to like. Eventually, he got to one up somebody. He's going to be like, "Look, your butt is mine." So I want to see what that looks like. But yeah, I think he's a good enough villain. I think this version of him was very threatening, and if this is like the light version with just one person and not the entire conglomerate of these different Kangs, we might be in for something. So yeah, I enjoyed it.
Terrence, what did you think, man? Like, did you like the Jonathan Majors interpretation of Kang?
Yeah, I did, and I'll talk about like him and MODOK just to get them both on out the way. I mean, Kang, I agree with you, Sage, that him getting beaten by the Ant family, just it kind of takes him down a bit. Like, you can't say that you beat other Avengers in other multiverses. You beat Thor. That's pretty much he said he beat Thor. You can't say you beat Thor and a bunch of the other Avengers, and then Ant-Man comes in and you just kind of get.
He didn't say he didn't just say he beat Thor. He said he had beaten so many Thors that he like couldn't tell apart the Avengers anymore. He had beaten so many Avengers.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
They all look alike to me. Like what?
Yeah, so it's like to beat people, characters that strong, and then kind of get washed by the Ant family. It kind of, I mean, I know why it had to happen, but it's just one of those things where that shouldn't have happened. But it is what it is. I do like Kang as a villain, although I will say I feel like they kind of, well, not even kind of, they just intentionally toned him down in like toward the end of the movie, because like when they were in the prison and he was just like flicking his wrist, just like moving his little fingers and just like pinning Ant-Man and his daughter up against the wall like it was no problem whatsoever. Like then it was like, oh yeah, this guy, he's a threat. But then after that scene is like all that just went out the window, and it's like, yeah, he was still strong, but it felt like it wasn't the same. Like once Ant-Man was able to go giant and they really like the Resistance started fighting back and everything, like he wasn't as big of a threat anymore. So I don't know if I really like the way that they set that up. But just if we're just talking about just Kang by himself, I do like him as a villain. Like Devin, I also watched Earth's Mightiest Heroes. That's the interpretation of Kang that I'm familiar with, and I think that Jonathan Majors is knocking it out of the park as a character. I think that he was an excellent casting choice. Yeah, I mean, I'm curious to see what they do with the other Kangs, like how it all comes together. There's not really much that I guess I can say on that until, obviously I see more. I do like where I like the potential of where we're going. I'll put it that way. Just a matter of seeing what happens. Especially I guess in Loki season 2, because at the last end credit scene they showed Loki and Owen Wilson's character pretty much looking at Frederick Douglass Kang. And I don't know if that's like going to be the jumping point for Loki season 2, or if that's something they're going to eventually get into in the season. But yeah, I'm interested in seeing that as well. So overall, I think Kang is a really good villain, and I'm very interested to see how he comes together as like the big bad for the next Avengers movie. And in regards to MODOK, man, I do agree with you, Sage, that yes, MODOK is a silly character. He's a goofy character. He's always been that way, regardless of comics, animation, video games. I mean, it's MODOK. He's a big head with little legs. There's only so much you can do, but I still feel like they could have done a better job with the way that he looks in live action. The way that I watched a YouTuber that described it like his face is like they messed up the aspect ratio with doing the CG for him. It's just so weird looking. They could okay, look at somebody like Thanos and the way that the CG is done for him. It's blended so well together that he looks real. Like, I mean, obviously he's not real, but he looks pretty real. Whereas somebody like MODOK, there's no like the way that they blended it together. And I get that he's not real. Like MODOK, I mean, he's this thing that couldn't be real in real life. Whereas Thanos, at least like he has the stature of a human. Like I get that, but it's just the way that the CG for MODOK blends. It just
would it have been better
messy
for you if they had left his helmet, his little face covering on?
Yeah, probably so. Probably so. It would have looked better had they done that, or like mechanize like his voice or something, make him sound a little bit more threatening than what they did. Then it's like, yeah, it's me, Darren. You know, that just was kind of goofy. But him as a villain, I mean, I hate that they kind of just treated MODOK as like a one-off thing, because he's definitely a character that could have returned. But you know, this is the MCU doing the MCU things where, you know, certain villains, they feel like they have to redeem them in some kind of way. So it's like, we're going to let them quip themselves off to death. You know, I don't know. I guess this is kind of like Strike 2 for the MCU in regards to taking like a character. Well, people like Taskmaster more than MODOK. So I guess Taskmaster was more of a disappointment. But yeah, just kind of like taking this character and not really doing him as much justice as they could have. You know, it feels a little bit of letdown. But him as a villain in the movie, you know, he served his purpose. I mean, he was ultimately just an underling. He didn't really like stand out on his own. So, you know, it is what Kang is the real bad guy. MODOK is just some dude that's there. So yeah, overall, Kang's fine. Like, I can't wait to see him in more movies. And MODOK, you know, well, he's MODOK.
I will say, as far as MODOK goes, that turn at the end was so fucking dumb.
No,
I
absolutely.
hated that shit. Oh, it's never too late to stop being it. Shut up. Take that fucking 1980s gotta teach you a lesson ass shit the fuck on out of here, bro. And knowing it's half the battle face ass. Like, but I ain't trying to see that bullshit. Like, just let that man get washed. Let Cassie fling him off into the sun or some shit. Like, he ain't need no redemption angle. He was trash in Ant-Man 1. He was trash when he showed back up. He could have just been trash when you never saw him again. Like, that was it. Or you could have him get flung, you know, like have Cassie fling him into the sun or fling him somewhere, and then like somehow he come back to normal size, and then he get discovered by AIM, and then you could do something with that. That would have been fine. But like this fucking fake ass redemption angle, at least I died in Avengers. Shut up. Like,
oh man, that was so weird.
Even they were like, "This nigga ain't no, you ain't no Avenger."
Hell no, he ain't no Avenger. Like Scott is barely an Avenger. If you don't get the fuck
real.
up, I ain't like none of that. That shit was the same level as that bullshit at the end of Guardians 1 where they just started pop locking and trying to like distract. I was like, man, it's not good. Like, it was just that whole it like took the film down. Like, I might have said it was an 8, but then they did all that bullshit with MODOK at the end, and I was like, oh yeah, you docked the point, because there was just no need for that. Even though like I said, I like the way that he looked, and you know, it might be that slot lights kind of covered up how bad that he actually looked.
Yeah, if you were in a theater and you saw it, I think you might have a different opinion, because you see him in high definition. No, it did not look good.
I mean, like, I'm also not as bothered by bad CG as a lot of people, but like in general though, I would have preferred if he had kept the helmet on.
Yeah.
Like, you know, if he had kept that little metal face mask, I'd have been like, oh, okay, yeah, you know, I dig this.
Hell, that actually would have been easier for the CGI artist.
It would have been much easier for the CGI artist. Like, I know people want to see his face, but like, come on. And I know Darren, I'm sure the actor was like, he got to show, was it Stoll?
Yeah, like
What's his
Joey
name?
Stoll. I
Corey
think that's
Stoll. Corey Stoll.
yeah, Corey Stoll. Corey Stoll. Yeah.
Yeah. I know Corey Stoll. I'm sure he wanted to be on the screen, but like, nah, buddy, you had your chance. Like, you playing MODOK, we gonna have to cover your face up for most of the film. You could have done like a reveal that one time to show who he is, so Scott would know who he is. But after that, cover that face up, buddy. Like, it's over with.
Imagine if Darth Vader had to like show his face like every 5 minutes.
Man, thank God that we like that era was before everybody had to, because like there's an element of like 2000 superhero movies. They used to always take their mask. Spider-Man used to always take his mask off. I'm like, this shit not really necessary. Like, we know who Spider-Man is. We don't need to see his face every 2 seconds. Whatever. Kang though, great. Everything about Kang I liked, other than like he lost. I love the fact that we kind of ever since Thanos showed up, we've kind of entered this era of fantastical sci-fi. We kind of leaving all that realistic military sci-fi shit from the early half of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We kind of leaving that shit behind, and that's for the better, because Marvel was always like out there and weird and cosmic and shit, and this is very cosmic. And man, I will tell you this, man, that man Kang had bars, bro. Like every time I turned around, he had a line of, how many worlds will die if you get out? Not yours. I was like, oh shit. Like, don't worry about all them other worlds. You need to worry about yours, and yours gonna be straight. That part with it, even the part where he told like the Avenger, like, an Avenger, have I killed you before? They all blend together after a while. You're not the one with the hammer. I was like, oh shit. Like, the fact that he lost to Antman at the end kind of took the sting out of that. But I like that bar. And then like the part where he was talking and all that shit. Do you know how many rebellions I've put down? Like, this that guy. This that guy. Like, I really want to see more Kang over the course of the next few, phase 5, phase 6, because I think he's gonna be in play until like that Secret War film. Because the last 2 films I think are Avengers Secret War and Avengers Kang Dynasty and Avengers Secret War. I think those are the last 2 films.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
So like with that in mind, I'm positive that he'll be in play until the end of Kang Dynasty. They kind of set that up like, oh yeah, they're kind of setting up the fact that Kang is causing the incursions, like all the Kangs and they bullshit is just causing the incursions to occur and shit. And I that's not what wound up happening in the comics, but it's simplified enough so that people kind of understand what's going on, where you like, oh, okay, yeah, this does make sense. Kang fucking around with time, causing these multiverses to these universes to smash against each other and be wiped out and shit like that. You assume eventually they'll have to introduce the actual person behind all this or the actual villain behind all this. But for right now, I thought that was cool. The one thing I will say I was disappointed by, when they said who sent him there, I was kind of hoping that was a time loop thing and it will come into play years down the line. Like, who did send him there? And you find out that it was actually like the Avengers that sent him there. And so he's caught in a time loop that he can't get out of. That I thought would have been like really cool. But I guess they was just like, nah, we ain't got time for all that extra time travel, timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly shit. We ain't got time for all that Doctor Who shit. Get that shit out of here. So they just wound up with it being the Kang Dynasty trying to take out their one opponent, that like the one real threat that they had. And then like also, since our movie was brought to you by Slotlights, we didn't get a chance to see the mid-credit scene. I had to go look that up. And so, Keem, there is a point where they do show the other Kangs, and then they all get to talk to one another. They don't look alike. The ones that we saw, they don't look alike. There's one that looks like an Egyptian. There's one that's in this super futuristic costume. And so all these references, they reference like versions of Kang that are really popular from the comics. I dug that. I do want to see where that goes forward in the future. Devin, what did you think of Kang and MODOK?
Like I said earlier, I think Kang was done really well. Just like the casting was great. His voice fits, the look, dialogue was really dope. Another line that I think he was talking to janitor. He was talking to janitor Scott. And it was like, I think it might have been when she first met him and she was trying to they were trying to rebuild the core for his ship. And then she found out who he was. He's like, well, I gotta stop you, gotta keep you here. And he was like, well, if you stop me, keep me here, then you're gonna have to deal with all of me. I was like, okay, so So it's kind of like one of those things where it's the same thing. It's like villains. Villains are really peculiar people. They just want to blow up everything. I want everything. Wipe it out. What you gonna do? You just gonna be sitting there, just in the middle of space? Like, what you gonna be here? What you gonna eat? What you gonna do? You gonna watch on TV? You just gonna everything just gone. Like, so we had that with Thanos, but now we have the same thing, but just different because now it's like a bunch of him, like himself, which is kind of cool. And again, like I said, I was first introduced from him with Earth's Mightiest Heroes. I've forgotten some of it because it's been so long since I watched it, but I do remember him being a really interesting character when I saw him back then. So I do think that it's really dope that the MCU has transferred him now being the big baddie. And Terrence mentioned something really cool that I thought about early in the movie. He had Cassie and her father, and then had them force pushed up on the wall, had her, I'm about to kill her. He turned upside down. I'm like, dang, this dude ain't playing no games. But then them Chimerians said, hey man, we've been to the Dark Continent. You know what I'm saying? Hey bro, we fought, we see Dawn before, man. He got that rock, paper, scissors, man. So, so I do agree. I'm just like, it kind of took some of the wind out of his sail. It's like, I've destroyed universes, I'll burn them in through time, and then you fight like, come on, bro. He put the force field up against the ants. I'm thinking he's just gonna disintegrate him. Like the ants getting through, like what? So that to me was kind of but he's supposed to be like super powerful. I just can't believe these ants just coming in here and just giving them equal battle. It shouldn't been. Well, he did whoop Scott, but it should have been like one hit, one blast, and that was it. It shouldn't have been no exchange of blows. So that was one thing that was like the biggest thing I had a problem with too, as far as his character. If they're setting him up to be this big, huge baddie, that it's like a bunch of versions of him. This version might be like, hey man, I like chocolate pudding, man. If y'all don't bring me 5 bowls of chocolate pudding right now, Earth gone. It's gone. I want chocolate pudding right now. Get him like some beerish type stuff. Hey man, I want some chocolate pudding. Give it to me now. You got 3 minutes, or this universe is gone. But yeah, I think Kang was pretty good. Hopefully they just keep adding on to him, and I hope that they kind of make him, they solidify his strength and power level throughout the rest of us seeing him, and not being like setting him up to be so menacing and powerful, and then like again he get ran over by some Chimerians. Now MODOK. I've never really been a fan of this character. And shout out to all my people to play Marvel vs. Capcom 3, because MODOK is actually top tier in that game.
He's actually pretty good.
He's actually busted in that game.
Analyze Cube.
So at least he get a W somewhere, because it was not this movie. They handed this man the L. That's to me the gift of Floyd Mayweather just throwing L's. Like, here you go. So, but first thing, when he first showed up, they gave him a dope intro though. He came in almost like a mechanical Ghost Rider. I'm like, riding in with his thing shooting. I'm like, who's there with the mask? I'm like, oh, that MODOK. Then he took the mask off. I was like, yep, he could put that back on if he wanted to. It was just that CG, boy. It was, and also, I think Terrence, this, but he didn't have any voice modulation. I'm like,
no, it was just the actor, just his regular voice. Yeah, there was nothing like really mechanical sounding about him at all.
It's just like, if any of you all are familiar with the cartoon TMNT, which stands for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, there's a big bad guy named Shredder. He has some underlings, Rocksteady and Bebop. MODOK was of the Rocksteady and Bebop variety in this movie. That man was talking during Kang. He's like, the man said, "Do not speak in my." I'm like, God, dog, do not speak in my presence. Hold on, now. You can't be talking like that. Then get Bebop and comments. But anyway, that's beside my point.
It's funny you mentioned TMNT because there's a Kang in that one too.
There he is. Wow. But yeah, MODOK for me, man. It was more so the dialogue. The fact that they were just trying to push the the quirky jokes. So like when him and Scott and Cassie were talking to him, there was so many jokes about. It was one like, it's a short walk, something. I'm just like, okay, this is just a little too much, y'all. Then it like Sage said, what did we see MODOK's cheeks? Like, whoever wanted to see MODOK's cheeks?
That was wild.
There's definitely a Rule 34 artist somewhere that wanted to see MODOK.
Oh my days.
But he never should have been in the movie.
Oh my days.
Like, and see, I know that I know people had like some issues with like Black Panther, like some of the CG at the end. I think when Killmonger and Black Panther were fighting, it was kind of a little spotty. This kind of had some issues with that in multiple areas. Mainly for me, MODOK, just that face, just like Terrence said, it just wasn't blended well enough, man. And it's just like you said, the aspect ratio just all they just stretched it and it just was like, hey man, we're just gonna stretch your face over this and make it shape, you know. Then they showed a little flashback, like I think Terrence said, when they showed that flashback, that's all they should have showed him. Take the helmet off maybe for once and then put that junk back on. It's like he when he was fighting Cassie, he said that whole I hated that whole little bit. I was like, bro, this was not needed. That whole little bit from when Cassie was fighting him till he, you know, killed over. I said, y'all could have took that out of the movie, bro.
I mean, the fight itself was fine. Like when she was like running from him and he was shooting all the lasers and shit. I was with that. But the second it was like she whooped him and
they
he
started
was like,
talking.
yeah. Oh, it's never too late to be a dick. I was like, yup. Trash.
Never too late to cut this move out. Click. hit my good friend Rakeem special move. 3, 2, 1. Get this off my screen. But yeah, I just man, and like you said, man, MODOK is already like a weird character. And to me, I don't know, man. This is why I say that these people have so much budget and like resources to work with. And I know we've talked about this before with like smaller studios, smaller projects doing like CG with certain things. If y'all can't get that right, man, it's like certain things just don't even attempt, bro. Like I don't know, man. I every time he was on the screen, I was just like, I just had a stank face, like. That's with the mask on. It was like it's kind of a menacing mask. I ain't never seen like that. And my thing is, so I know Sage would definitely know this. Is that even like a real origin story for MODOK?
Oh, the way that it happened in
because I'm like, this ain't how
MODOK has no connection that I can remember to Ant-Man. He was like an invention by AIM. That's why I brought up AIM when I was explaining it. He was, in fact, the Avengers game has a more accurate origin story.
Yeah.
Like, you know, he was just some scientist who, you know, they kept experimenting and then like he wound up with like that giant head and they just put an armor around him and made him into like a. That's like his actual origin story. This shit where basically Kang, as far as I know, he's got no connection to Kang whatsoever. So I was like, I guess.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know a whole lot about MODOK, but I'm totally sure this is not his origin story. And it almost felt like they just kind of was piecing something together. Like again, like I said, it's a dialogue and they was talking. He was like, MODOK. He's like, you know, yeah, I'm MODOK. And he's like, oh, it's an acronym. Excuse me. He's like, it's an acronym. It's like, wait, that should be MODOK. It's like, shut up. I'm like, well, y'all be quiet. Go on to the next scene. Like, so that I'm done. I'm done bashing MODOK, man. I think Kang was solid overall, except for like the minor parts where they made him seem like he was so powerful. Then he's like kind of lowered him a little bit, and then MODOK just MODOK. So you know,
it's gonna be bad no matter what they do now. Like because he lost in such a way. Instead of them like kind of figuring out a way to stop his army, but failing to stop him and him just like getting away, being like, you know, I could kill y'all, but why bother? I got other things to do. If they had done that, it would have been better because the fact they didn't do that, now you're in a situation where even if you show the next few Kangs to be cold, even if you show them to be like these like multiversal level threats, everybody gonna be like, yeah, but this was the Kang that was going around killing them. So how was he a
good
threat?
Point. I mean, look, like contrast it to Thanos, where when Thanos showed up and like fought the Hulk was so shook he stayed tucked away for an entire movie.
No, the Hulk was so shook he stopped being mad.
Yeah,
Like
I guess it is
after
the
that,
point.
like he whooped that man ass so bad the Hulk was no longer mad. Like he stopped, he got over all that shit. That's how you know you whoop somebody ass. Like the dude that constantly be angry and you whooped his ass so bad he like, I need to go to counseling. Like that's it. That's how I knew Thanos was that guy. In fact, like the scene that Terrence talking about at one point, he whooped the Hulk ass so bad they was like, Hulk come out, and Hulk was like, no. I don't want.
Children all over the
He's
world.
like, oh, come on. Why won't you come out, buddy? No.
You know, it's so bad that children actually like, I don't like Hulk anymore. Like kids will like they used to like Hulk, and they're like, I don't like Hulk no more after that movie. Like, dang.
I don't know if it's any kids that's actually like that, but it'd be
No,
sad.
I'm serious. I knew a kid that Hulk was his favorite. Like, I don't like Hulk no more.
I mean,
after that movie.
I'm gonna tell you like this. That was a mistake. Like this is an off tangent, but that was a mistake. I don't like Hulk. I've never liked Hulk because he always got hands for like his teammates. He never got hands for the villains, and that's been true in the comics for years. Like he's rarely ever the dude to like take out the villain, but like he'll come through and cause all the problems for the hero. So I always been like, fuck Hulk.
But like Gravitron though,
he did in Earth Mightiest Heroes.
Even Thor couldn't beat him. I'm like, dang.
That is true. But that's one of the rare times I've seen that. Most of the time, you never see that. And so, like, I'm not a Hulk fan outside of, like, specific Hulk comics, like Immortal Hulk. But it's a bad sign when somebody that don't like Hulk like the scene because they like, oh, yeah, you know, he got bitched. Like, there should be somebody in the testing audiences. Oh, yeah, I love that scene because fuck Hulk. And you should be like, oh, whoa. The Hulk fans, they probably not gonna like it because like the Hulk haters liked it. Like that's a bad idea. So they should like him piecing up the Hulk was cool, but like everybody was like, I know some people was like, oh well, you know, it's good that they didn't go with expectation and give Hulk that big moment where he showed up and beat Thanos. That no, that was bad. Like because now you got fans that's like, why y'all do that to my guy? And then you like you say you got kids apparently that's just like, yeah, I don't like Hulk no more. Like that's not good. So that was. One of Marvel's misses right there for sure.
I forgot to mention something. If I can say real quick,
yeah,
the part where he came out of his ship, and Kang was like, "All right, I'm tired of this mess. I put it into my own." He started going out there blasting everybody, disintegrating everybody. This man, Xena the Warrior Princess and Spotlight Boy came out. Spotlight Boy shot him with the face beam. He did a little Doctor Strange. Give me your energy. I'm gonna throw it back in. I put it back in your mouth. Like, dang. Then he gets run down by Chimerians.
That's a good point too. Is that he was just straight up disintegrating people, and then like after he disintegrated like the NPCs essentially, like when it got time to like the main characters, like the beams would hit them, and it's like, we just brush it off, you know.
I don't like you'd have to explain. Like you could probably write an explanation. Maybe you could have. I mean, like I said, like if they had come up with some type of like, pimp particles are actually the reason why, like they counteract this technology. That would have been much better than like them having literally no answer because they had none. It was just like, oh, like they names in the script. What about them other dudes that died? Their names not in the script. Like they got some guy number 3 in the script, and that like we get rid of him. And like even what was it? What did Devin call a Spotlight Boy? I didn't feel sorry when he died because he was the one that kept going like, "Can we torture him now?" I'm like, man, get this bitch out of here! Talking about some torture this guy. Can we torture him now? Can you die now? Boom! Like it is. That's what I thought.
I do like one part that I talked about the comedy. Y'all know when y'all saw when who was the character with the symbol on his head? I almost saw it. I'm like. I thought Bishop. I'm like, wait, that's not Bishop because this ain't.
I'm thinking of the actor, not like the actual character, but I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
And they came up on this like, what's the code for the bridge? He's like, I die first. And then
he's read his mind.
Oh, he's like, dang, my bad.
Yeah, that was funny. That was funny.
He's like, I'll die first. It's like 1, 2, 5, 6. All right,
He just had to die.
He was like,
"Go read your mind and get up out of here." That was a great bit, and also the guy that kept asking about holes. That was pretty solid. I have a hole now. Hey, call me juvenile. I don't care. Like I laugh. Like how many holes you got? 7. Having Scott just sit there like,
he's like, yeah,
it is 7. I was with that. The last question I do want to ask y'all, since people are calling this like a mistake, and then when you think about it, you know, Eternals, people was kind of cold on that. Black Widow, people was cold. In fact, people was cold on a lot of Phase 4. And then now Phase 5 is getting off to kind of a soft start. And so I want to know, do y'all think DC has a better chance now with James Gunn at the helm and Marvel seeming like they on the downswing in terms of reviews and audience enthusiasm? Does DC have a better chance now, Rakeem?
Yes, absolutely. I was watching a podcast the other day. I think it was Swerve Strickland talking to Kenny Omega. And they talked, and there was like people on the podcast who talked about it specifically. He was like, one of the guys was like, look, these latest Marvel movies ain't been a hit for me. I'm about to give them one more chance, and I'm gonna see what DC talking about. And I think like when you have a paradigm shift like that with James Gunn, who did a lot of good stuff for Marvel, comes into DC and restructures everything, they're gonna have some momentum coming out of it with interest. And let's be honest, man, it feels like after the original Infinity Saga, it just felt like almost like the anime that went on too long. Like it finished right perfectly, and then they were like, "We got some more seasons," and it was like, "Why? You beat Eisen already." So I think there's some fatigue in that regard where people got a satisfying conclusion, an emotional conclusion. There was a lot of weight to it, and was really done well. And people didn't necessarily need more from that specific, at least not right now, but it could have took a gap out of there. So I think there's going to be some people who, because of that, they felt like they had a satisfied conclusion. They're going to want to see what DC talking about, because I think we all can agree that DC's rollouts for their movies have been really hit and miss and inconsistent, and in some cases just bad. And people kind of were souring on them. But now that Marvel's kind of hitting their downswing with the same thing, people are not taking their movies anymore. I think people want to see another interpretation of superhero movies. And I think James Gunn is a nice, happy medium. Of course, Snyder was all dark and brooding, and James Gunn is just not that. It's not like he has a good range of what he wants to make. But, I mean, it's yet to be seen. You know, we got to see how these movies and shows turn out. But I think Marvel can be in danger because of this. The momentum that DC's having because of the new era they're moving into could cause a shift where audiences are turned away from them and want an alternative.
Terrence, what do you think, man?
I'll say this. Despite where the MCU might head or where we think it is now, we at least had 10 years of really good stuff. We hadn't had a cinematic universe like this where it's been carried on for so long and just able to string multiple movies together to make this thing that really we didn't think was possible. Like, honestly, I remember back in 2012 when Avengers came out and, you know, talking with friends and maybe even some of you at that time about this is a movie that I'd never thought would happen. And then we got to Infinity War and Endgame. We finally got Avengers Assemble. Like, I never thought that we would have gotten that in my life. Like, I just thought that was impossible, and Marvel made it happen. So regardless of where we go from here, I at least want to give them credit, and I think people can never discredit them for that body of work they put together. The Thanos, the Infinity Saga, whatever you want to call it, that chapter of Marvel, that was great. Like, that's something that I don't think is ever going to be topped for I won't say it will never be topped, but I don't think it's going to be topped for quite some time. In terms of DC, I kind of think maybe we should pump our brakes a little bit because something has to be put out first. I don't want to just say that yes, I'm hopeful. Like, I hope for the best. I do hope that James Gunn's DC is everything that we want it to be, and it really revitalizes kind of like the superhero genre. Because I think that's the thing, is that right now I would kind of equate the superhero movie genre to like isekai and anime, where we've kind of seen a lot of the same old, and it's starting to kind of like blend together and get to the point where it's like, it's very formulaic and we know what to expect, and there's not really much new. Every once in a while, there's something that comes out that's great, and that's still the case with superhero films, but it feels like there's not as much great as there used to be. And, you know, the same thing kind of goes with isekai. And so with DC, yeah, I do hope they succeed. I do hope that the future films are great, but they have to prove themselves first. At least Marvel has a 10-year track record of good to great films. And so if they're kind of like sliding off now, well, you know, sometimes you have to take the bad with the good. As long as they don't keep sliding, I'll put it that way. Hopefully they will learn lessons from, and it seems like that's the case because Kevin Feige even announced that they're kind of like pulling back on the TV show. So it seems like they are listening. But if they do continue to like slide and DC does rise to the occasion, I mean, I do hope that they can give us really good superhero films so that the genre just doesn't die off. Because that's kind of my concern, is that if DC fails too, the superhero genre might be out by the end of the decade. Because I mean, it's going to be a wrap at that point. I mean, if the MCU continues to slide off and people are interested in that, and then DC comes along and their movies are trash too, then that's it. You know, because at the end of the day, it's about money. And if the films ain't making money, they're not going to get made. So I don't think that the fall of Marvel necessarily means that DC could rise. I mean, they could, you know, they could rise to the occasion, but that's just one of those things where I have to see it to believe it, you know?
Okay. So I'll say this first off. James Gunn has put, you know, he does have a resume. The Suicide Squad, as it's called, and Peacemaker are both out. Even though The Suicide Squad didn't do that well in theaters, I think that was largely off the back of Suicide Squad 2016 being such a piece of shit.
Yeah.
But I think it probably would have done better without that. But people, like, the reviews were solid. People liked it a lot. Mm-hmm. Peacemaker was definitely well received. So I'll say this is two things first. One, you said superheroes could be on the way out by the end of the decade. Personally, I think whether DC is good or bad, superheroes are probably out by 2030 anyway. It's like the Cowboys.
I think you're probably right. Yeah.
It's like the cowboy genre. Like back in the day, cowboys were huge throughout the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s. The cowboys were huge. You know, like me and Rakeem and, you know, all of our roommates, like, we've talked about this a lot of times about how our folks, our grandparents and our parents, depending on how, you know, the gap in age, our parents and our grandparents used to love cowboys, you know, Gunsmoke.
My dad still watches Bonanza, Gunsmoke, all
yep.
Bonanza, all
the Rifleman,
the Big Country, you know, all that shit. You know, the Rifleman come out there and shoot the gun off, you know, 18,000 times before you know, start to show off. Bonanza, we got a right to pick a little fight, but like they loved all that shit, and it was hot for decades. And then one day, they just weren't hot no more. Like the auteur filmmakers came along and they started making films like Godfather and Star Wars, and really, like, the blockbuster kind of killed them low key. Like the blockbuster came out and they was like these big productions and shit, and everybody looked at the cowboy films and it was like, I mean, I guess, like, you know, I hadn't seen cowboy films before. And so, like, when you look at it, don't just think about Marvel in terms of, you know, 2008 Iron Man. You got to think of Marvel in terms of Blade 1999. And when you look at it from that perspective, it's been around. Like, there have been superhero films pretty consistently. Like, even you go back to the 2000s and you wind up with X-Men, the X-Men trilogy, the duology of the Fantastic Four films, the Spider-Man trilogy, Batman Begins, Superman Returns. There were X-Men, there were superhero films throughout the early 2000s and the mid 2000s, all the way up until we finally got Iron Man 2008. And so, like, it's been 2+ decades already. And then you talk about, by the time you get to 2030, 30 years. It might be time for something new. And you know, Gen Alpha, they might have grown up with superheroes, but they might be like, we don't want to see that shit no more.
Yeah,
like,
that's a good point. I think that's a fair assessment. The
other end of it, though, is something I want to introduce y'all to, and y'all wouldn't know anything. Like, people watching this, if you don't read comics, you wouldn't know anything about this. It's called the pendulum theory. It's something that fans of superhero comics have had for a while now. Of the pendulum always seems to swing in favor of one company or the other, DC or Marvel. One of them is always like creatively compelling, while the other one has kind of fell off. It's been that way for around about a decade now, I would say at least. You might have some people that say it goes back further than that. In fact, actually, yeah, you could say it goes back further than that because I thought DC was on fire during the Infinite Crisis era, and I thought Marvel was kind of shit during the Civil War era. That can be argued. Some people might say like, "Oh man, I thought Marvel was cool," but like Civil War was a mess to me, and like you have that definitely going into like the New 52 era versus Marvel now, and then like Rebirth versus whatever the fuck Marvel was doing back then. There's always been this swing, and as one company is kind of rising up, the other one is kind of on its way down. It doesn't really mean one is down for good, but it does mean that for a temporary period of time, one is like we up right now. Like that's DC. I could easily see all it takes if they nail that superhero movie. I mean that Superman movie. That's it.
Yeah,
that's all it takes. Like once they nail that Superman movie, because that's what you need really to make DC work, to make the DC universe work. You gotta have Superman. Everybody gotta see a good Superman. Once you got that, we up right now. That like, it's one thing to get a peripheral team like Suicide Squad, a peripheral D-list character like Peacemaker. It's one thing to get that right, but once you start getting them A-listers right, oh, it's over with. It's not as if Batman was ever making bad movies. Like Dark Knight Rises wasn't great, but even that people loved a lot. Like a lot of people still love Dark Knight Rises to this day. I'm not one of them, but a lot of people, I recognize that a lot of people do.
We're far from the days of Batman and Robin.
A long way from that. So like we a long way from like the days of Batman and Robin. So like Batman Begins, Dark Knight, Dark Knight Rises, the new Batman with Matt Reeves and Robert Pattinson. Like that, Batman has been hidden for Batman fans, and like all you got to do is get Superman right, and then you back on track. So like it's not hard. Like all Marvel has to do is make one or two more mistakes, and DC just to get one or two films right, and that pendulum will shift immediately. And I as a DC fan, I'm kind of all right with that. I'm kind of excited at the idea of like, oh yeah, everybody's checking out the DC films, and I don't know that we get that DC gets to do 3 chapters. They might not get that. As long as I can get Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, Justice League, if I can get one good, like that first chapter, like the full chapter, like not just what we've seen, but all the way up to like presumably it ends at a Justice League film. If we can get up to that, I'll take it. I'll take that. Like, I'm sorry, like as a DC fan, it does suck if you're a DC fan like me and you're like, oh no, man, I want 3 chapters. Marvel got 3 phases. Like, they had their chance and they blew it for years. Like, you think about when Man of Steel came out in 2011. What was out in 2011 for Marvel? Hell, Avengers wasn't even out yet. I think it was just Captain America and Thor.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just Cap. Cap and Thor. Thor 2, I think. Because Thor 2, I think, came out before Avengers, right?
Yeah. Well,
no. I'm wrong.
Just to make sure. I'll check just to make sure.
No. I know I'm wrong. Because it's Iron Man 2, Thor 1, and Cap 1, and then Avengers. That was phase 1. And so, like, they had their chance. Like, back then, in 2011, when Man of Steel first dropped, Avengers wasn't even out yet. And you could have developed the universe alongside Marvel, and you could have had some fighting back and forth with Marvel, and you fucked it up. And so now that Marvel has already gotten through.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It was just Thor 1 and Cap 1 actually. Yeah, that was all that was in 2011. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So like you had your shot, you blew it, and so like you getting this second opportunity, and if that works out for you, good. But if you get to a point where superheroes are dead by the time you get through Justice League, oh well, like you should have got it right. So I don't really feel bad for them, but I do want to see if DC can pull it off. Devin, what do you think, man? Does DC have a better chance now? Do you feel like Marvel's on the downswing and shit?
I'm gonna say it's too early to tell. I mean, this is like the first movie in the newest phase, so I mean, I don't think this movie's just gonna play out. I hope it wouldn't play out for this whole new phase. Now I do think since DC is kind of like starting a new slate with James Gunn coming in, they do have the opportunity, and it looks like they're kind of taking a page out of Marvel's book and doing like this whole setup for like a big movie. Like Sage just mentioned, like a Justice League movie or something like that. We do need something like that for DC, because like the past DC movies, it's just like a lot of more hit and miss. People, with Superman v Batman, people talked about, people didn't like that. The last movie, what was it? The 4-hour movie. Who was the guy? Snyder.
Snyder
what was
cut,
it?
Zack
Yeah,
Snyder.
Snyder cut. So it's been some excuse me, been some hit and misses with the DC movies. Again, like say you said, Batman has been like the backbone. He's been like the backbone of DC. When it's kind of crazy if you just think like just generic, like in general, like the two characters that should be the backbone, it'd probably be like Batman, Superman. I say Batman, Superman, like Wonder Woman. Those would probably be like the three like chain links for like the DC universe in terms of movies. And like say you said, if they knock out or act, if they get Superman right, that is like the best possible thing that could happen for DC. Get that right, and then possibly lead into like a good Justice League movie. That would be awesome for DC, and that would kind of be DC doing kind of like echoing the same thing that Marvel did with their different movies, and then leading into the big movies with the big baddies and stuff like that. So yeah, I think DC got a chance if these movies, if what they got going on with this new the things they showed off not too long ago, if they can make these things happen, they got a shot. Because like I said, it's too early to say that Marvel's just gonna flop. This might just been one of them things. Like I think Terrence mentioned, this is just kind of like something to just set up for, but not be like something that's just super great by itself. It's just like, hey, this is Kang, and hopefully later on as the movies go on, it'll just get better and better. We'll see him in a much more menacing light, and just see like even the other versions of him and stuff like that. So, like I said, it's still too early to tell, but I do think they have a great. This is the time. It's time is now. If it's any other time to be like, hey, let's put our best foot forward to make these movies for DC great, to give the fans and the viewers of these comic book lovers like some really like good movies, because we need them. Like the fact that like we need another really good Superman movie. Like Superman, it's like again, I think we talked about this with games. Like Superman just got no love hardly. Like games mostly been trash. The movies is just like hit and miss, and
When you see
I
me a bad guy.
you punching Joker in the face, and punching a hole in Joker face, which was deserved. But yeah, I think that we need some good movies for DC, man. Because I mean, Green Lantern was like a bust. I'm pretty sure everybody agreed Green Lantern was terrible.
I didn't go see it. All I seen was him in the space bacon outfit, and I was like, yeah, I don't need this show. I don't need this
Yeah,
movie at all.
so I heard that was a bad movie, and alongside a bad game, a movie tie-in game. So we
And
need
which
some,
which killed a good cartoon.
yeah, yeah. That's always crazy. Like the cartoons, DC just be fire, but it's like when it comes to like the live actions, they just like what who that how we make this? It's like how y'all what?
It's funny because it's like the opposite for both. Marvel's animation is usually not that great,
Yes,
but the
great.
movies, the films are good. But DC, yeah, their animation has always been top tier, but
Yeah.
their live action films are just like, outside of Batman, of course.
So maybe that'll change now. Maybe roles will be reversed, but I mean we'll see. Like I said, this is the first iteration. It's the first little piece we got from Marvel's this new phase we're in. So hopefully when DC come out with their movies, like dang, that was pretty good, man. That Kang ain't looking too good compared to this, but we'll see. They might have who knows? They might have the first Superman movie come out and he out there fighting Santa Claus or somebody. Like, man, what is this? Why are you fighting Santa Claus?
Santa Claus.
Of all the villains.
I guess ultimately we'll see in 2025, right? Because that's when Kang comes out and Superman is supposed to come out that same year too. So that's going to be the real battle. Like we'll see how it goes then. So I guess 2025 might be the real deciding point.
The other thing I'll say, like two things before we close it out. I know James Gunn, because I if you like notice like something eye popping for some fans, they'll be like, oh, like you said Ant-Man was better than Guardians. I hate Guardians. I never liked it because like there was a canon that he went against and he like ruined it. James Gunn is not my guy, but he's not ruining any canon with these new films. Like Guardians had its own canon. I think Superman, he'll be coming to that fresh with a fresh mindset. It wasn't like he messed up Suicide Squad. It wasn't like he messed up Peacemaker. He had nothing to mess up. And so like there is no big run on Superman right now that he can pull from, and well, that he'll be. Well, actually, there is a really good Superman, but you can't do that because it's not. There are too many things he'd have to introduce, so it'd be a different kind of thing. And then the other thing I'll say, and this is really big, whether Marvel sucks with this Kang thing or not, they do still have one big ace in the hole. As long as they got X-Men.
Oh.
As long as they got X-Men, they're going to be all right.
Well,
Fantastic Four a little bit, but Doctor Doom for sure. As long as they got X-Men and Doctor Doom, they're going to be all right. So, like, that's the trump card. Like, if all this...
You know what? That's a really good point. Break in case of emergency.
Yes, sir. If phase 5 and 6 don't work out, what's the Boondocks line? If this rap shit don't work out, we running in niggas' houses. Like, look, if this Kang shit don't work out, we pulling out that X-Men, buddy. Like, you rest assured, like they not playing around. Like, as soon as phase 6 is over with, whether it works or whether it don't, they gonna have X-Men all in your face. Like, yeah, we ain't forget. We know y'all love Cyclops. We know y'all love Apocalypse and Magneto and Professor X and Wolverine, and they gonna go get to that as soon as possible if this phase 6 shit don't work out. So they gonna be all right. But I mean, right now they gonna have to pull it together to figure out like if we can make phase 5, and because Kang, I mean, like Jonathan Majors is putting in an all-time performance. So like, there's no reason why you can't elevate Kang to be as cool as Thanos was. So like, if you don't, it's on y'all, because like right now he's giving you enough to make it work. But I do think that's gonna wrap it up for this week's episode. If you like that, I need a few things from you. I need you to do us a favor and hit that subscription button on YouTube. I need you to follow us on Twitter and TikTok. Don't just check us out. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your ex you're cool with that you shouldn't be cool with no more. Break it off after you tell them about us, not before. Tell your coworkers you don't know, you might even make a new friend. And do me a personal favor and have an excellent week. Peace.